Hey everybody, I'm Stu. I'm one of our senior product managers here at FreeAgent, and with me today on the flight deck is Em, our chief accountant. Many of you might know Em, and she's going to be taking questions throughout this. But for the next 20 minutes or so, what we're going to be doing is two things really. We want to talk a little bit around how to get your data into FreeAgent successfully and easily, and also how or the key reports, the key FreeAgent reports and figures that can help you understand your business performance. So I'm hoping you can all now see and hear. Got slides up on my face, but on the off chance that if you're having any problems, please pop a note in the Q&A function over to Em in the Zoom bar. Also, if you've got any questions on anything we touch upon today, then feel free to ask them in the Q&A, and then we'll get back to you during the time slot. If we don't have time for that, I mean, sometimes we get quite a lot of questions here, then our support team will get back to you after the webinar, so please leave your details. I'll also provide some contact details at the end if there's anything you wish to discuss further, or that you feel that we didn't go into more detail on anything you require, and our fabulous support team will be able to help you further on this stuff. Now, we can't provide accountancy advice, it's probably fair to say that, but we can help you with any FreeAgent related queries. So firstly, if you're not familiar with FreeAgent, welcome. We're a cloud-based accounting software package that's designed to demystify accounting for small businesses and essentially sort out the mess and stress of managing your business's finances. So just to touch on that, Q&A box if you want to speak to Em, otherwise I'll be taking you through the rest of today. So let's get started. As it says here, and this probably shouldn't be underestimated, measuring your business performance can be tricky, especially as dealing with data can be intimidating. Now, while you take on many roles as a small business owner, being a master statistician shouldn't be one of those roles, unless you are a statistician, obviously. So my goal today is to really cover some of those business performance metrics and various aspects of productivity and your business's productivity, and to do so with as little jargon or accountanese, as we say, speak as possible. Before joining FreeAgent, I was a self-employed sole trader, and I definitely needed everything related to my business accounts kind of stripped down so I could understand it easily. If you've joined this webinar and you're looking for in-depth diagrams of T accounts or credit and debit entries into double bookkeeping ledgers, then you're probably in the wrong place. This is designed to be relatively straightforward and simple into FreeAgent's core functionality so you can understand business performance. However, before we get into the kind of key metrics, I'd like to cover some of the ways of getting your data into FreeAgent successfully. So setting up a new FreeAgent account is easy. I'll not be covering aspects such as how to pick the correct dates or how to add your VAT registration details, though these are very important. And however, what I will touch on, albeit relatively briefly at this stage, is the efficiencies of getting the core data in correctly. So I will be walking through these areas in a live account, but a quick summary before we get there is, firstly, opening balances. So what are opening balances? Well, as it says there, these are the amounts that your business has in each of its accounts or categories, as we call them in FreeAgent, at a particular time. Now, if your business is new and you just started trading and you're joining FreeAgent at the same time as your business start date, or you select to start on the same day, then you won't have any opening balances. This is nice and easy for you. However, if you've been trading for a period of time or you're joining us mid-year, then you will need to tell the software what state your business is in, and this is done by adding opening balances. The second piece we're going to touch upon is bank transactions. I think we're all probably familiar with what these are, but just in case, these are money moving in and out of your bank account. So they're the record of that. Next, we'll touch on contacts. So in FreeAgent, we call contacts the umbrella term for any of your customers or any of your suppliers, and you use contacts to attach things like invoices, estimates, bills, and projects. We'll then touch very briefly on projects. So what's a project? You're probably familiar with the word, but in FreeAgent, a project is a larger piece of work that you undertake for one customer. So that's something like if you're designing a suite of websites for a single person, then you might create a project for that so you can track all your costs and income under the one area. Next, we'll move on to historical expenses and mileage. So expenses in FreeAgent, or out-of-pocket expenses, as you might see them referred to, are business costs that a person has incurred personally. So if you nip down to Staples and you buy some, I don't know, staples, I guess, then with your own card, then the business will owe you that kind of money back. So you can create this as an out-of-pocket expense. And then mileage, which is mileage that traveled in your own car that you can expense. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, is your historical sales invoices and bills. So in FreeAgent, an invoice is a document that you or a business issues to its customers, asking the customer to pay for the goods or services that is supplied for them. A bill is the reverse of this. So this is what you receive from your suppliers. So it is still an invoice, but because you're receiving it, we refer to it as a bill, and which essentially means that you will pay this sooner or later. So these are the kind of areas we'll be talking a little bit about data entry when we go into a live FreeAgent account. But before we start doing that, the last thing I want to touch upon is the key FreeAgent reports or pieces of metrics that will be really key to look at as we go through. So the first is the profit and loss report. Now, this is maybe the one that most of you will be most familiar with. And this is a summary of business income minus day-to-day running costs over a given period in time. So perhaps an accounting year, perhaps a month. This report can also be known as the P&L or the profit and loss account. And it aims to show whether your business has earned more income than it's spent on day-to-day running costs. We'll then touch upon the balance sheet. This is one of the other really high-level and important reports. And this essentially shows how much your business owns or owes at any given point in time. Now, the balance sheet sums up all of your assets, which are what the business owns. And these can be in two different types. You have fixed assets, which are assets that you kind of own for more than a year, typically. And then current assets, which are much more liquid. And what we kind of mean by that are things like cash or stock that you tend to have for less than a year that kind of come and go quite a bit between your business. On the other side of the balance sheet, other than assets, you have liabilities. And liabilities are essentially debts, which can be short-term or long-term. We will get into this report in a bit more detail, but that's the kind of overview of a balance sheet. Aged debtors. So an aged debtors report is a totaled list of all the invoices your customers haven't yet paid you for. And that you take away that balance, any credit notes that you've issued to them that you've not yet refunded them for. Some businesses are quite heavy in credit notes, your ones may not. We then have a customer sales report, which is absolutely one of my favorites. And this kind of breaks down the income you've received from your customers and reflects this over different date ranges. So you can really see that kind of income being broken down. And conversely to customer sales, you have spending categories. So the spending categories report shows where you're spending your money and includes bills, expenses, and bank transactions. And it breaks down the information by category, such as accommodation and meals. How much are you spending in cost of coffee or your office costs, for example? And lastly, and certainly not least, is cash flow. So cash flow is, in essence, money coming in or going out of your business. It can refer to physical cash, so cash in hand or cash in your business bank accounts, and is usually measured over a period of time, such as a month or a quarter. Now, to go into a little bit more detail here, positive cash flow is a term that's used often, or healthy cash flow, or net cash inflow, if you want to be more accountanese. But these essentially mean that you've got more cash than you're spending. And this is usually a good sign. Cash is king. Negative cash flow or net cash outflow means that your business is spending more than it's received. And this is usually not a good sign, as it means your business is spending more than it's earning. So hopefully that gives a wee touch upon, before we dive into a live account, of the key reports on this slide and the previous slide on the data entry and how to get that in, or where we're going to look at get that in. So I'm just going to dive out of this and into a live account, and I'll go straight into the overview page here. So This is your kind of overview. There's a lot of information here, which is great, especially if you're on the go. But rather than go into the metrics, we're going to have a quick focus on the data entry and how to get your information into FreeAgent easy and quickly. Now, I should say FreeAgent has a fabulous website with guides on how to do all of this. So if you at any point get a little bit lost, you can rewatch this as we go through, or you can go to our guides. And as I said, our support team are there to help too. So the first thing we talked about on the first slide is your opening balances. So we do have a section under accounting and journal entries and an area called opening balances. Now, as I touched upon earlier, this is the balances on your categories. So your bank balances, or you can see at the bottom here, I've got a sales balance as at your chosen FreeAgent start date. And we have an import button at the top. So this is usually a task undertaken by an accountant or a bookkeeper, especially if you're joining mid-year and you've got some balances to transfer over. However, it's available to users with full access to the FreeAgent account. So it's something you could do yourself. And clicking the import button, we give you a template, essentially kind of a spreadsheet there that you can fill in for each of these categories, put in the balances and import that straight into FreeAgent. And it says here you can download a chart of accounts if you want to keep your references correct on this. So that's the kind of first information. That sets your where is my business at as at my FreeAgent start date. Moving on from that, we then have banking. So once you've got your opening balances in, arguably the most important thing to do is then to connect your bank feed to get your bank data in. Now, bank feeds they automatically import your business transactions into FreeAgent, and they're super, super easy to set up and also extremely secure. The really nice thing about bank feeds is it takes away all the manual admin, they import overnight, and FreeAgent has some really cutting edge automation that will help you categorize a huge portion of those bank transactions for you, leaving you with far more time to do the important things of running your business. So these can be set up by clicking on an account here. This is all dummy data, but let's say I wanted to connect one to my credit card account. I'll have enable bank feed at the top or enable bank feed on the right hand side, and clicking on that takes you through to the options. Now, FreeAgent supports a wealth of connections. You can see NatWest, Royal Bank, Barclays, Lloyds, and more challenger bank like you've got your Metal, your Monzos, your Revoluts, and your Starlings as well, and you can get that data imported automatically for you. So once you've done your opening balances and your bank transactions, it's now worth thinking about your customers and your suppliers. So as we said, contacts. Now, there are several ways to import your contacts. You can add them one by one. There's absolutely no problem with that, or do that via our mobile app. But we do have an import contacts section. Now, this allows you to choose Microsoft or Google Outlook or Apple Mac, or even exporting from FreshBooks, or you can simply create or use a vCard format, and these are all supported. Or if you use Basecamp, if you're a Basecamp user, you can connect to Basecamp and bring all your contacts in that way. And then once you've kind of done that, you have your list of contacts, everything against them. You can have a grid view if you'd like, or a list, or whatever suits you best. And then you can start to begin to attach items like invoices and bills towards them. Moving on a little bit from contacts, we then have projects. And again, you'll see at the top, import projects button. Now, we touched upon this a little bit earlier, that projects are usually these one-off pieces of work that you can do for a particular customer, and they're very easy to create up. So if you use Basecamp, a project management software, you can import from there. Otherwise, you can add them kind of manually, and they're very easy to do and manage. So this is an example here of a project that's in creation. I've got my breakdown of time spent and money received, and the amount I've not yet billed for. You can see the project profitability across this area here, and we have full project profit and losses as well. Moving on after projects, if you have any historical expenses or mileage, so this is stuff before FreeAgent start date, you can import these too. So these are these expenses that we talked about of being things that you can see my name at the top, have incurred personally that I'm billing the business back for. So this is things like phone calls or travel and the likes. And you've got an import button at the top here, and I can click to import these expenses. So if you keep these in spreadsheets or however you do keep them, we do offer a template, again, a spreadsheet to kind of fill that out, import it straight into FreeAgent, and it will populate all those expenses area. And exactly the same for mileage traveled in your own car. So you can do separate ones for both of these. We'll then move on to our final piece of data import, and that will be your invoices and bills. So if you do have historical sales or invoices and bills, you've got a few options of how to bring them into FreeAgent. Firstly, is we support third-party integrations such as AutoEntry or Fabio. They're on our website. You can use these to import your data. Alternatively, what people do is recreate them. So I've got an example here of we offer a lot of customization with our invoice themes. So you can kind of go in and add your invoices if you wish, despite whether they're center page. You can mark them as done historically in FreeAgent. Or simply what a lot of our users do, if you're very heavy in your invoice usage, when you join FreeAgent, what you can do is not recreate your historical invoices, but simply explain all the money in your bank that was for previous invoices directly to sales. You won't have the invoices then recreated in FreeAgent, and you don't need to do that. But moving forward, you can start to create and send your invoices through FreeAgent. And we support a wealth of payment providers such as your Tills, Stripe, PayPal, Go Cardless, that you can begin to invoice your customers through FreeAgent. And the same applies to bills, those invoices that you receive from your suppliers. So that's the data entry. I know I've kind of whistle-stopped through there, but there's a ton of content there, and we have guides to all of this to kind of go into in more detail if you need the support. But there's not actually that much to it. It's quite a relatively easy thing to go through when you've got the support and guidance there to make sure and keep you on the right track. Next, we'll chat a little bit about metrics. So the key numbers, the real reason that we're here today. So the overview screen. Now we have a fully fledged and pretty awesome mobile app that does a lot of this functionality as well. So if you've not downloaded it, I would suggest doing so. But on the desktop version, this overview page is essentially an entire snapshot of your business using a series of panels or widgets, as I'm going to call them. And it's the best place to get that easily digestible flavor. So you've got your cash flow up the top, and you can kind of change the month that it's viewed over. You've got an invoicing timeline. You're kind of invoicing in a table format, your estimates, your projects. Got your banking widget, which you can change to be individual accounts or the total sum of all your accounts. Your bills, kind of what you're due to pay, and your expenses due to pay back, and then your profit and loss snapshot on your tax timeline. So these are some of the things I'm going to touch a little bit on, but this is the thing that I would recommend checking very regularly once we go through some of the core numbers of where to look, because I realize there's quite a lot of data on this screen. So it's about cutting through to the vital noise. So this profit and loss widget down the bottom right-hand side is probably the most important, or the one that I certainly see the most value in. So we're going to touch on this. So this is a snapshot of the full profit and loss report, and you can access that via view full report in the bottom right-hand side. The same with all these widgets have a view full area, and it takes you through to those areas of the account. And this is really showing you, as I said earlier in the original slides, whether the business has earned more income than it's spent on its day-to-day running costs. So if this income figure is more than the expenses figure, you can see there's a calculation here, then the operating profit will show as a green and a positive. And this means that the operating profit, or the profit of the business, is positive. If it was negative, we would show this as a red. But this is the kind of value calculation here to show that a profit has been made. Now, this income is essentially a collection of all the turnover for the year. So that is all the things that are kind of sales related, and expenses is minus all the day-to-day running costs, and that equals this operating profit. Now, this isn't the end of the story, but it's the most important part of the story, and this is three good figures to keep a regular eye on. However, we then have some extra numbers here that it is quite important to go through these too. So if you are a sole trader, then you'll see dividends here, but I'm in a limited company account, so I see corporation tax and dividends instead. Now, what this means is from your operating profit, you do need to remove some things that are not considered day-to-day running expenses. So that would be an estimate of the tax I have to pay, so a corporation tax estimate, a limited company, or as a sole trader, you need to remove drawings. You'll see that there. And I also need to remove any dividends from this as well that are already paid. And that gives you a retained profit. So this is a kind of the bottom line from operating profit, removing some of the non-daily expenses or non-daily costs. And what FreeAgent does is it then adds that with all the profit that has been brought forward from previous years. So this 78,000 figure is from previous years. I add that with the current accounting year, and I get a carried forward and distributable amount. And this is really the figure that is the most important to keep an eye on. So what does that mean, carried forward and distributable? Well, in essence, for sole traders, this is the amount of money that you can take out your business today. And from a limited company, this is the current balance of profit that you can pay out in dividends. So we would always say, speak to your accountant for any final guidance on this kind of thing. But this is the amount you can take out your business. Now, if you go to the full report, you will get a full calculation exposed to you. There's a lot more going on in this page. If you want to dive into it and learn about the breakdown of how these figures are calculated, absolutely go for it if that's within your wheelhouse. Otherwise, the snapshot provides all the important high-level details. We're then going to look at the tax timeline. Now, the tax timeline shows all the upcoming filing deadlines and how much is owed. So you can see I've got a VAT return here that's due on August the 7th, which is 2 months, and a payment for this due of £242.49. So this is just a timeline of events that will tick over as your upcoming deadlines come. So you can see there's also Companies House due for my end of year, and the corporation tax payment due of £872. One really nice thing about FreeAgent's overview, and because the profit and loss and tax timeline are quite important, you can move them around. So if I drag this tax timeline over here, I can then put that as the headline on this widget over here, or even move widgets around if you'd like. So you can really customize this to get the core information for your business. Now, this profit and loss report exists under accounting and reports. So we have a dedicated section for this. I've just touched on profit and loss up here in the top left. So I'm going to go into balance sheet. So as I touched on earlier, this is what you owe and are owed at a specific moment in time. So at the moment, we've got now. You can change this to the 31st of December 2018, or whatever date you want. You can put in a custom date, and it will give you your business's position. Now, it's worth saying that FreeAgent handles all of the complex bookkeeping here. So as long as you're entering in your invoices or bills, your out-of-pocket expenses, and connected your bank and your transactions are feeding in, being categorized, you don't need to worry about also doing things on these reports. This is all done for you. And this report, this balance sheet, is relatively daunting, but it is also quite straightforward. I just want to touch on why that is. So the calculation here is we show all the capital assets. So these are the larger items such as machinery or computer or cars. And we detail the balance of all them for your business. You then have current assets. So something that is expected to turn into cash within a year, such as trade debtors, you can see here, which are the invoices that you are due money from, or the value of bank accounts. You then have liabilities, which are bank accounts in the negative, or trade creditors, which are bills you've not paid, or VAT, which is a VAT bill you've not paid, for example. And all that boils down to total assets, which is all of your assets, or everything you own, minus everything you owe, your liabilities. And this is essentially always going to match the total owner's equity, which means if you sell everything that your business has right now, this will be the amount left for those business owners to keep, be a limited company or a sole trader. So why is the balance sheet important? There's a lot of numbers going here. There's a lot going on. We want to strip it back to the importance. Well, simply to keep business owners like you informed about financial standing. So typically, if your ratio of assets, what you have, to liabilities, what you don't have or what you owe, is less than 1-to-1, then you're probably in a little bit of financial trouble, and you'll have to make some strategic moves to improve that kind of financial health. And balance sheets are important because this document or this report lets you kind of know that status, but also let banks know if you qualify for additional lending or loan, or to help you out with your cash flow position or your credit lending. And they will typically look at this kind of net balance at the bottom there to see the status. Going back into the reports, I'm going to touch a little bit on age debtors, which is how much your customers owe you, and a breakdown of each individual invoice. So you can see here, I've got the contacts down the left-hand side and the invoices just within inside that, and the dates of these. And it's kind of divided into these columns of how overdue the invoices are. Now you can customize this to view it on custom dates if you don't want to look at it today, or specific dates if you want, and exporting it via the top into a CSV or a PDF. But why is this important? Well, to put it quite frankly, keeping debt in your control is key to financial health. It seems obvious, but if you have a lot of customers owing you money, or a lot of money, then your business is not set up to be in a good cash flow position moving forward. However, if you stay on top of your debtors, then you're much more likely to have that ability to be flexible in the near and medium term future. So this is something that I really recommend that all FreeAgent users have a wee look at and dive into and keep on top of, to make sure that you're not owing a ton of money at any given point. And you can see all these breakdowns at the bottom for each period of time. So I would recommend going and having a look around in here. Next, we're going to take a wee look at your customer sales report. So this is not just the income from invoices you haven't yet received, but this is the income you have received from your customers. So this can be viewed monthly, or let's dive into yearly. And this shows your annual sales by customer up to the last 1, 2, 3 accounting years, and then a total. And you can again export this into CSV if you want to do some spreadsheet wizardry, if that's kind of your bag. Alternatively, it's all here in FreeAgent. Why is this important? Well, I think going back to kind of my days of self-employment, knowing who your best customers are and worst customers is a really key factor in deciding who to do business with in the future. The report makes it relatively easy to see who deserves that red carpet treatment, such as we've got some good money coming in here from stamp and co-letting agents, and it also tells you who deserves that one-way ticket to Dumpsville. Coming on from customer sales, we'll then dive into spending categories. And spending categories is kind of the inverse of this, and it shows the money going out your business, and it includes bills, expenses, and bank transactions. So you can view this yearly, or we'll dive into kind of monthly for this. And you can also select the top row of any column and sort that in an ascending or descending order. So if I want to dig into April 2023, I can sort that to be ascending and descending with the kind of money that I spent. And I can see that depreciation charge and accommodation and meals. I spent a lot of money on accommodation and meals in April. Again, these can be exported and delved into or shared if you want to into a CSV file. But why is a spending category report important? Well, the spending money is the easy part. It's probably the part we all really like to do. However, most businesses do spend more than they need to because they don't have the control in place, or a system in place, I should say, to manage this spending. And with proper visibility and control, you will increase the efficiency by determining what can be spent and on what activities. It's also super important for budgeting and forecasting. And without knowing where your breakdown of spending is, it's quite difficult to do that. The last thing I'm going to touch on just before we wrap up for today is cash flow. And cash flow is the money coming into and going out of your business. And it can be physical cash in hand or kind of cash in your business bank accounts. And FreeAgent's got its own dedicated cash flow tool here. And you'll see today's balance and then a forecasts kind of coming in and out. And as I said earlier, cash is king. It's the bloodstream of your business, and it's important when keeping a business running to keep your cash flow positive. FreeAgent does a lot to show you your predictions and then suggested actions to kind of make this better. And you can set up manual events to manually adjust this and forecast for yourself in the future. Right, folks, hopefully that's given you a nice overview into how you can get your data into FreeAgent and the important figures to look through on a regular basis. It's been really enjoyable. I think that's probably as at time today. Don't hesitate in getting in touch if there's anything you want to discuss in more detail. You can email the support team at support@freeagent.com, or we have our live chatbot on our website if you'd like to go and chat in there. There's also the knowledge base section. When you scroll down to any account, you've got knowledge base here at the very bottom, and that should answer all the questions that you need. It's been an absolute pleasure, folks. Hope you all have a great day and take care of yourselves.